All right, hey, it's TalkBox day here in the studio. Working on a couple things for the Troubadour project, and decided to break out the old TC Electronics TalkBox synth, which simulates pretty decently the Pete Drake TalkBox device that we all know and love. This is what this thing sounds like. It's pretty fun. Here we go. Pretty good sound, I'd say. I used to have a real Pete Drake talk box back in the 90s. I haven't seen that thing in a long time. I would love to find it again. It's got to be around somewhere. But back then I didn't know the whole story. I knew Pete Drake was a steel guitar player in Nashville. But what I didn't know was that he actually didn't invent it, but he kind of popularized the thing. He had some novelty records in the 60s, Pete Drake and his talking guitar, that sort of thing. But, he made a living as a session player, and he stayed pretty busy doing so. He played on a lot of records that we all know, Tammy Wynette's Stand By Your Man, a bunch of Johnny Cash stuff. But he also played on Bob Dylan's Nashville Skyline record. And flash forward a few years when Beatle George Harrison is putting together All Things Must Pass, he has a consult with his buddy Bob about getting some musicians that played on that record, and Bob highly recommends getting Pete Drake to come over to Abbey Road Studios. So they fly him across the pond, as they say. And I suppose if you hired Pete Drake back in the day, you got Pete, you got his steel guitar, and you got the talk box, whether you wanted it or not. I don't think there's a talk box on All Things Must Pass. I'd have to double check that, but nonetheless, I know that he brought it because I've heard the story that he had it hooked up at one point, was demonstrating, and one of the players in the room for the session was a young Peter Frampton, who saw the talk box, and I must have had something must have clicked and thought, I know exactly what to do with that thing. And so 5 years later, you have the record Frampton, which, and then a year after that, you have Frampton Comes Alive, which is really the versions of those tunes that most of us, certainly I know better than the Frampton. I've listened to the Frampton record and been surprised by it. But yeah, all those great live versions of those tunes, Show Me the Way, and Do You Feel Like We Do, and all that stuff, using the talk box. It's not really this, but it's kind of close to this. If you want to come out to one of the Troubadour shows, you might get to hear this thing in action, and I hope you do. And that's my story. You can see Peter tell the story himself, but that's my little version of it. And all right, that's it. We'll catch you next time.